Today we're gonna find out if Joe Burrow can take every NFL team to the playoffs in Madden 23. First up is Burrow on the Bears. Now, it's not looking too hot. I'll be honest. He might start off the video with an L. Unless him and Mooney is like anywhere near him and Chase, it's not gonna be looking good. Like, the defense is cool, but that O-line, I don't know, man. 1-for-1, Burrow makes it happen. 10-7 in a wild card game against the Saints. Threw a lot of interceptions, 62% completion percentage, barely over 4,000 yards, but he did have 500 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. Nobody can do it alone. Look at Trevor Lawrence winning the first MVP. Down 24-9, 2 minutes left in this one. Burrow looks like he's going home in round 1, but at least he took the Bears to the playoffs, man. Burrow and the Bills should be able to make it with no problem after seeing what they did to the Rams in week 1. 10-7, first place in the AFC East, 35 touchdowns, only 14 picks. Allen wins MVP on the Bengals, but they lose in the divisional round to the Colts, 35-27. Still the best performance we've seen from them so far. There's only been 2. Jesus, JT was just insane. Denver looks really good on paper. The problem is their division is so stacked. Like I said, man, very tough division. The first time he's not able to make the playoffs, even though his team had good rankings. Top 10 in yards and passing touchdowns. Offense was 7th. So let's be honest, it really was not his fault. 38 touchdowns, most he's thrown so far. Allen wins another MVP. So he's 2 out of 3 so far. Let's see if he can bounce back. In Cleveland, another team with a really good supporting cast. I don't think there's any chance he doesn't make the playoffs with them. Tell me why Burrow had his team first in points per game, but they still missed the playoffs. That's just unlucky, man. I don't know if I should count this or not. Like, 3 games above 500 doesn't get you in. That's insane. I guess we gotta say it's a no. He better not make it 3 in a row, man. Now he's on the Bucks with playoff Lenny, Evans, Godwin. This really good offensive line. 12-5, Burrow's back into the playoffs. Over 5,000 for the first time in the video. Over 40 touchdowns as well. Allen wins his 3rd MVP of the video, but Burrow finally cracks the top 10. And they made it to the Super Bowl. Guess who they're playing? Burrow's old team. 2nd and 10. No more timeouts for Burrow. He's gonna dump it off over the middle. Ill-advised decision. That's how they lose the Super Bowl. But hey, he made the playoffs with the Bucks. Took him all the way to the big game. Arizona's another team that has a ton of talent on offense and a pretty good defense. Now, they are in a tough division, so I could see them missing out by like a game or so, but hopefully they can make it. 13-4, they completely dominate their division. Almost 4,600 yards, 35-9 touchdown reception ratio, almost 70% completion. Not to mention 4 touchdowns on the ground, 463 yards. Mahomes takes home this MVP, but Burrow has his highest MVP finish so far. Joey Burrow's headed back to the Super Bowl 2 in a row after beating the Cowboys. Had to show y'all there's no force wind going on. This man is just that different. Let's see if he can bring home the Lombardi this time. 3rd and 6, only 1 timeout remaining for Tannehill and the Titans. They have a spy up. Look at JJ Watt and this D-line. They force a fumble, and Joe Burrow not only takes the Cards to the playoffs, he gets them a Super Bowl. Now we're gonna see if he can do the same thing in Los Angeles, a team that arguably has the best roster top to bottom in the entire NFL, so I'd be shocked to see them miss the playoffs, but again, it's a very tough division. They make the playoffs 10-7 in a very tough AFC West. Burrow throws for over 5,000 yards, has almost 40 touchdowns, but it's Lamar who takes home the MVP. Another top 5 finish for Joey B, but they lose their first game in the playoffs 30-23 against Matty Ice and the Indianapolis Colts. It's always JT. He always goes crazy. Staying in the tough AFC West, how is Burrow gonna do on the Kansas City Chiefs? No Tyreek. Not only does he take them to the playoffs, they end up with the first round bye. Burrow ends up 3rd in passing touchdowns and passing yards. Offense is 4th. Only 9 interceptions to go with his 42 touchdowns, over 5,000 yards, 73% completion percentage, and another top 5 MVP finish. Brady takes this one home. They take care of business against the Patriots, but then lose to Jonathan Taylor and the Colts once again. The team that keeps on preventing Burrow from taking these teams all the way, the Colts, is the next squad up. This should be a breeze, man. They've been in the playoffs almost every simulation we've done in this video. Somehow they don't make it. 8-9, 3rd in the AFC South. 15 interceptions, only 25 touchdowns, less than 4,000 yards. Offense was bottom half of the league. I don't know what happened. Now he's headed back to the NFC. Looking at Burrow on the Commanders. Great defensive line. They should be able able to make it. That's how you bounce back, man. Burrow goes 11-6 on the Commanders. Numbers weren't the best. I mean, they were respectable. 30 touchdowns, 11 picks, but he's not going to be anywhere near the MVP conversation. Look at Wentz on the Bengals. Hurts takes this one. And guess who's back in the Super Bowl, man? You can't make this up. After Burrow misses the playoffs with the Colts, they end up going back to the big game. Meanwhile, they lose the wildcard game 28-27. Mariota has 4 touchdowns. Burrow did pretty well. A 1-point loss is nothing to be ashamed of, man. He went back to the playoffs. That's all that matters. Staying in the NFC East, let's see how Burrow does on the Cowboys this time. We already know about their offensive line. You know about Parsons, Diggs, Zeke, CD. 13-4, one of the best records we've seen so far. First in offense once again. Almost 5,000 yards for Joey B. 35 tutties, only 14 picks. Allen takes home another MVP, but Burrow ends up 9th. They end up losing to the Packers in the NFC Championship game after beating the Rams in the divisional. So far, so good for Burrow in the NFC East. That's 2 for 2. Staying in the East, but we're looking at the AFC this time. He gets to play with Tyreek, Waddle, Gesicki, and the Dolphins. 7-10, tied for last in the division. 28 touchdowns, only 4 picks. One of the best ratios we've seen so far, but the run game wasn't doing so hot. That's what really happened. Brady wins the MVP this time. Burrow's not in the top 10. Kind of a tough one, man. I don't know if I can put the blame on him for that. Burrow on the Eagles would be kind of disgusting. I cannot lie. Great offensive line. One of the highest overall teams we've seen so far. This one should be a breeze. I need to stop jinxing this, man. Every time I say it's gonna go good, they end up 6-11, last in the NFC East. I have no idea what went wrong. I mean, he had good numbers. Offense was top 10. Was this his best season? No, but it's not even close to his worst. 100 passer rating. Had 7 rushing touchdowns to go with 35 passing touchdowns. He ends up 5th in MVP voting. Like, this is not his fault that they went 6-11. Allen wins another MVP. Now we have Burrow on the Falcons. I'm done making predictions. We're just gonna read off the rosters, read off the teams, and yeah, let's see what happens. They end up 9-8, barely missing out on the playoffs. Another good season for Burrow, man. Over a 100 pass rating. Dak wins this MVP. Burrow ends up 10th, so he's doing all he can. Sometimes you just can't overcome the rest of the roster. Luckily for him, he's in San Fran now with one of the best rosters in the league. Debo, Kittle, not sure what's going on at the center position. They got a 56 overall, but this defense, those weapons, I mean, come on. I don't want to jinx him, but come on. 12-5, Burrow's back in the playoffs. Ooh, passing game was not very good. Offense in general wasn't, but it wasn't terrible. 29 touchdowns, 10 INTs. Burrow had 10 touchdowns on the ground, so it was the run game that was going crazy. Debo had 6. Allen with another MVP. Burrow ends up 8th. They end up losing in the wild card around 2017 to the Eagles, but at least Burrow was able to get back into the postseason. You know how people joke about how LeBron's ring in Cleveland was so meaningful that you could almost count it as 2? Well, that's how I feel about this next stretch of teams, because the supporting cast is not that good, okay? Burrow on the Giants, who do have Saquads and a pretty good receiving core. It'll still be pretty tough to take them to the postseason. Burrow takes the Giants to the playoffs, 10-7. 6th in offense. Yeah, this might have to count as 2 playoff trips. He was dominant. Almost 5,000 yards, 44 tutties, only 10 picks, and a 2nd place MVP finish right behind Mahomes. They end up losing in the NFC Championship game to the Bucks, 45-30. Still a very solid run for Burrow. 3 picks, not amazing. Okay, but he still got 2 dubs with this squad in the playoffs and almost won MVP. That's a really good season. Can he do it again on the Jaguars, a team that also has a pretty good running back, wide receiver core, good tight end, Scherf on the O-line. 12-5, first in the AFC South, 32 tutties, 10 interceptions. This is a middle of the pack season for him. Allen with another MVP. I don't expect him to get in the top 10. And of course is JT and the Colts, who bounce him again. On to the Jets, man. If he does this 3 in a row with this lineup of teams would be crazy. They missed the playoffs, but 8-9 is a respectable record. 33 touchdowns to only 13 INTs. Really good season. Not enough to get him an MVP vote. However, Allen with another one. The Detroit Lions now have Burrow as their quarterback. Honestly, not a bad roster. I see why people are saying the Lions could be a sneaky playoff team. Burrow did all he could to to carry this team. They were 5th in passing yards a game, 9th in points per game, but they end up 6-11 because their defense was so bad. 41 touchdowns, only 15 interceptions. Mahomes gets MVP this time. Burrow ends up 10th. This one again is not his fault. Now he's going to replace Aaron Rodgers on the Packers. This could be the next quarterback we do. Let me know if you guys want to see that by destroying the like button. No more Devontae, obviously, so he's going to rely on his running backs for the most part, maybe Tunyon, and the defense, one of the best defenses in the league. They go 11-6. Burrow's back in the playoffs. 42 touchdowns, only 10 INTs. Phenomenal season. He ends up 5th in MVP voting. Dak wins it. Good showing in the wild card round, but they lose to the Cowboys in the divisional. The highest overall running back Burrow's been able to play with, CMC on the Panthers. This is going to be a nasty duel. Then you have Moore, Anderson. Offense is going to put up numbers. We'll see if it's good enough to get them to the postseason. Offense was top 3 in points per game, but the defense was bottom 3, and that's what ultimately led them to missing the playoffs. I think that's an above average season for Burrow. 39 touchdowns, only 16 picks. No top 10 finish in MVP voting, but I can't put this one all on him. Burrow and Belichick on the Patriots. Honestly, this is a really solid roster. They may not be as top heavy as some other ones, but they have solid depth. They win their division 11-6, beating out the Bills and Dolphins. Pretty good season for Burrow. 31 tutties, only 9 picks. Mariota wins MVP in this simulation. Can't quite get to the Super Bowl though. They lose in round 1 to Tennessee. Burrow and the Raiders. How does he do with 2 X factors to throw to, one of the best slots in the league? Really good running back. Once again, I think offense does really well. I think defense does well too, so they could make a run. 12-5, second in the AFC West, first in the NFL in offense. Arguably Burrow's best season. 109 passer rate and 45 touchdowns, only 15 picks, and a 3rd place MVP finish. Mahomes wins it again. They beat the Bills in the wild card, but lose to Cleveland in the divisional. Burrow on the defending Super Bowl champs, Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson, and a really nasty defense. 11-6, first in the NFC West. Almost 40 touchdowns to 10 interceptions, over 4,600 yards. The MVP goes to Allen again, but Burrow ends up top 5. And for the first time in a long time, we have Burrow back in the Super Bowl. Hey man, he's done plenty of passing. At this point, just let your running back in this O-line get the first. 444 passing yards is plenty. Akers gets the first. And Burrow wins his 2nd Super Bowl in this experiment. He's been to 3 of them, but that's the 2nd time he was able to get it done. Burrow in Baltimore, man. A lot of Ravens and Bengals fans are not gonna like this one. Can he keep the streak going, man? I think that's 3 yeses in a row. Passing game was dead last in the league, but that didn't stop him from going 12-5 and winning the division. 3,500 yards. Now he had a pretty good ratio, 26-8, but of course you know the playbook, man. 11 touchdowns on the ground. Lamar almost wins on the Bengals. Dak ends up getting it. Burrow still ends up in the top 7, all them rushing touchdowns. They end up losing it in the divisional round, even though they had the 1st round bye. 36-19. Hey, he still got to the postseason, man. I'm surprised he ran for that many yards. The Saints and Burrow should be able to make a solid push, but I'm trying not to jinx. I know it's just tough when you see a roster this good and then a quarterback that good. Yeah, it's just a match made in heaven. Another 1st place finish for a Burrow-led team. They end up 1st in offensive points per game. It really was just their defense that held them back, but they still end up winning the division. 43-10 touchdown interception ratio, almost 5,000 yards. And another 2nd place MVP finish. He's getting closer and closer. Wilson gets it this time. An NFC Championship game loss to the Cowboys is how their season ends. Still a phenomenal run. Now I know everyone's down on Geno and the Seahawks, but I don't know, man. I feel like Burrow can make some noise with one of the best wide receiver duos in the league. They ended up not doing too hot, okay? Bottom half of the league in almost every major category, and they go 5-12, missing the playoffs. 21-9 touchdown interception ratio, 86 passer rating. This is Burrow's worst season by far. Dead last in offense. The last division rival of the video for Burrow. This time's the Steelers. And another good wide receiver core. 11-6. Burrow takes them to the playoffs. They win the AFC North. Very solid season. I'd say it's probably like a top 10. Speaking of top 10s though, he didn't end up in the top 10 for MVP voting. A wild card win against the Jaguars, but then they lose to the Chiefs in the divisional. If he throws the Cooks on almost every play, then I can see some crazy numbers being put up. Still, I don't know if that's going to be good enough to get the Texans to the playoffs. 5-12, one of the worst records in the video. Offense was actually pretty decent, at least the passing game was. Had double the amount of touchdowns than interceptions, so it's not a terrible season. The final AFC team, Burrow on the Titans with Derrick Henry and company. 10-7, tied for first in the AFC South. 35 touchdowns, only 8 INTs. Rodgers wins MVP, no top 10 finish for Burrow. They win the wildcard game against Cleveland, but lose to JT and the Colts. And last but not least, how's Burrow gonna do on the Vikings with Cook, Jefferson, Thielen? He ends off the video with a 10-7 record and second in the NFC North. They make the playoffs. 4,400 yards, 40 touchdowns, only 13 INTs. No MVP for Burrow in this video. Lamar gets the last one. Now, he probably won a couple of Super Bowl MVPs. He did win 2 of them. But the video ends with an NFC Championship game loss to the Niners, 41-35, and there you have it. Burrow was able to take 21 out of the 32 NFL teams to the playoffs. Remember, he already took the Bengals to the playoffs in real life. Let me know in the comments who we should do next. Thanks for watching to the end, and I'll see you on the next one.